G'day, hi, and welcome. All right. A little late getting down here. It's 10:30. 10:30. I went over to shovel my aunt's and uncle's steps. My aunt's was already done. My uncle's was partially done, so I finished it for him. Okay, this week in World Crazy, I got lots to do. Before I get into all that, a little bit of housekeeping. The most important stuff you're going to learn in this video. First off, let's switch this camera around. All right. So I'm almost finished that book, guys. Nearly finished it last night. Got a bunch of books there, and new books. Got to tie into those too, but I'll be happy to get these library books back. And yeah, I read a couple of the first pages after supper. I told my nephew, "Here, sit here. I got to read this to you." And he's like, "That's terrifying." I said, "It's a good book. It's really good." He's like, "That sounds so scary." I said, "It is. It's good." Great book. Best book I've read so far. It's gonna be a hard one. I might even go out and buy that book. It's that good. Uh, but I got to bring it back to the library. Last night I went. My buddy and I we cleaned up. I shoveled the church steps yesterday. I don't know if they made it to church, not because it was a bit of a snowstorm. Not bad, but just enough that it might stop people from going. And then we went. We did the school. My buddy and I went and did the school, and on the way back, stopped for a 10, which was really good. Then I got home just in time for supper, and we had like these guys. They're gonna be like 1,200 pounds by spring. I swear to God. But then rather than going on the internet last night, I listened to maybe one show, and then I just got down to writing. And I finished chapter 2 last night of my book, 2060 Dystopia. I'm at 99 pages. So it's gonna be a bigger book that I'm sure once it gets condensed down it'll be about half, but it's still it's about 99 pages so far. So I'm estimating about 500 to 700 pages, and then maybe revised and everything, maybe about probably between 300 and 400 pages, which is a good size for a book, like for a first book to be finished. But the idea is that if I could finish writing it before the end of the month and get the other two finished written before the end of March, that would be phenomenal. And then hopefully by the end of June or July, I could have everything rewritten, spell checked. I might have to send it to I got to price it out first, but like to send, like if it costs me, like say, 500 bucks to have my book like basically edited and rewritten and typed up properly, like it'd be worth it. Like I'd have to save up for it, but to do that and then have it proofread and then a final draft and then self-publish, promote the shit out of it. That would be good. And then just to say, at least I did it with one book. Just the feat of writing 2 chapters. This is one chapter more than I got in my first book from years ago. But anyway, yeah. So just thought to keep you up to date on that. And so far, guys, like it's good. It's like really good. Like if you go listen to the 2060 Dystopia, uh, like I guess you'd call them monologues. I don't know what you'd call them. It's like an ebook without the book. Uh, that I just made up on the fly. The story is pretty good as it is, but I mean it's rough, right? It's all my bitch shoot. You can go listen to it if you want the spoiler, but the stuff I've like revised and added is so much better, and it's just like, yeah, the fight scene. I get my ass severely kicked throughout the entire book, but the character is basically me. But what I did instead is I just used my middle name as his last name, and I'm not sure if I'm actually gonna like let anybody know what the first name is because it's a part of the story where we don't know. He doesn't remember everything, right? It's not like the movie Memento, like amnesia, but it's like okay, there's a chip in my brain that's blocking me from remembering the world before 2030, and I wake up out of a coma in 2060, right? And it is all because the East Coast Canadian asked me. Reg, can you make a prediction of what you think the world's going to be like in 2060? And I ended up doing a story. I've done a couple of stories. I did the sorrow and out of the ashes ones. I don't know if I'd ever turn those into books. Maybe I should. Maybe I should because I think they would be good. But I don't know. It's kind of like a story you came up from years ago might be good, but you're in a different headspace at that time. That could you really revise it now? 2060 to me is the world we're living in now. And when I get to the first topic of the day, it's kind of this is what's going to be going forward. Like what does the people that are reacting right now look like in the future, right? So anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd give you guys that little heads up. Uh, Again, I 99 pages. I wrote like about 60 pages in one night. Like it was hours of writing. But you feel good about it. You feel very good about it. Tonight I might not write as much, but I'm going to write as much as I can. I'd like to at least bang out a chapter every 2 days to 3 days. That would be good. I think that's a good pace. You know, uh, and the trick is you don't wait till you're motivated to do it. You just start doing it. I think one thing Andrew Tate, like, there's a lot of things I disagree with the man on. There's a lot of things I do agree with him on, but there's a lot I don't agree with him on. But one thing I do agree with him on is when he says, "Don't wait for motivation, just get up and do it because you'll never get the motivation. You'll never do it." He's correct about that. If you wait till you're motivated to do stuff, you'll notice you never do stuff, right? So my whole thing is, oh, hey, I gotta rearrange my pictures. I'll show you something before. My whole thing is just to get it done, right? And then once it's done, I got to move that one into the middle and that one onto the edge. Yeah, because I got them in the wrong order. Just thought I'd let my OCD kind of like take over the video. All right, so anyway, I guess that's all the yak, and I'm very excited about writing 3 books at once. Never wrote a book before in my life. I attempted once, but I never wrote a book before in my life. But I like, yeah, let's no. Why stop at 3? Like, why start with 3? Or why start with 1? Let's go right for 3. But 2060 dystopia is a bit of a cheat because I already kind of know where the story's going. Uh, and I can revise it. Like hindsight's always 2020. You can always come up with something better after, right? So anyway, the first topic, oh boy, is that lady. I can't think of her first name, Mrs. Good. We'll call her Mrs. Good because that's her last name. Got shot by the ICE officer, and my first reaction to it was quite ranty, like most people. And like most people, we just go by the headline news right out the box, right? So yeah, outrage, outrage, and the scenario is outrageous. It is outrageous, but I have to. And guys, I told you many times on this channel that if I thought I got something wrong, I'd let you know. And I think I did. So like everybody, first, just like condemning this officer, whatever. Now, I'm not saying I don't like what happened, or that I like what happened. What I'm saying is that it's not what the media obviously hit the ground running with, that it was just like a lopsided, clear case of he just murdered her. It looks like that from one angle, but now that I've seen many angles, I'm like, no, she was trying to run him over. Intentionally kill him, we'll never know. But considering this guy's already been run over once and dragged 100 feet by another, like, these ICE agents, what the left won't tell you is all the ICE agents that are getting shot at, that have been murdered, getting stabbed. The media won't tell you that either. The politicians won't tell you that. Now, the thing is this is not a tragedy; it's a travesty, right? So I like when I saw the first footage. Yeah, it looks like the officer steps in front of the vehicle, and their training says to stay to the side of the vehicle because of this very thing, that you might get run over, right? And for a guy who already got ran over, I'm sure he's not going to. He knows that no matter how good his bulletproof vest is, it's not going to stop a 3,600-pound vehicle, right? But what happened is, and you clearly see it on some of the videos, I don't know how long the footage will stay up, from the officer, she hit him. She actually hit him, right? And you say, well, that doesn't warrant him shooting. Well, yes and no. I mean, that's where the gray area is going to be for the courts to decide. My hunch is that When you see her sitting in the car from another officer's angle, you see the wheels go like this, through like this, and the car turns directly toward. She could have got around that way, but she went directly towards him. In other words, she intentionally tried to run him over. At that point, training takes over. Pop, pop, pop. She's dead, right? You have her lesbian wife there going, drive, baby, drive, right? Encouraging. Now, both of these women were obstructing justice. You might not like that, but they were obstructing justice, right? If you're going to challenge a police officer, do it in the courts. Don't do it on the street. Like this is something that the left doesn't understand. Like the left has been given since the 1960s free range to do whatever they want all the time with little to no repercussions. I mean, sometimes, but most of the time, no. So they can go riot in the streets, they can bust up storefronts, they can do all this damage, and they never pay the consequences for it. And not only that, they have a victim entitlement mentality, right? That the laws don't pertain to them, and you have media influencers, the mainstream media, some mainstream media, politicians going, you need to throw your bodies on the line. In other words, these politicians and everything incite violence, and they never get held to account for it. Where they go on and on about January 6th and stuff like that, and right wing violence, this, and oh, you're spewing violence and hate, blah, blah, blah. But yet, when they do it, they never get held to account, which, because they control the system, it'll always be that way. Right? But the real evil here is that this woman obviously is not right in the head. So some people have already critiqued it, but it's like it seems like the left martyr the most disgusting people. Like this woman, like lost custody of two of her three children. I don't know why the other children would be still with, because that lesbian lover of hers basically was putting cigarette butts out on her children. Now, I'm not saying that the woman, deserved to get shot for that, but what I'm saying is, this is the mind state of this woman. She's not mentally well. If you're abusing your children like that, you lose you'd rather, like, if somebody puts cigarettes out on your children, like, bad things happen to that person. You know what I mean? Like, bad things should be happening. Like, she should have been beating the shit out of that, even if she went to jail for a bit. You defend your kids. But no, she's not, and this just shows you why, and this is why I'm against the LGBTQ thing. I've changed my stance on that too. You asked me in the 1990s what I thought about. Well, back then it was just the LGBT, lesbian, gays, the LGBT, lesbian, gays, bisexuals, or whatever. Back then, and you asked me what I thought about it back then. I was like, marry a fence post. I don't care if it doesn't pertain to me. I'll be libertarian about it, right? Now I'm like, no, this does harm. And you're like, these people are mentally ill. I mean, it's a spectrum. I'm not saying all gay people can't function in society, but these radical leftists obviously can't function in society. They are mentally ill people who are being encouraged to go chase down ICE, track them down. And again, there's money behind these protests. You know what I mean? Like those people, and it's your usual suspects, Jewish groups, and like the George Soros groups and stuff like that. The Democrat group. Like, it's always them. Like it just every single time, it's always them. You don't even when you don't know, you already know. It's the MO, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I've had to change my stance. No, I'm not saying the officer did right, but I can understand that what he was doing. And yes, she hit him. No, you can't run over police officers. And yes, they are officers of the law. They're a different branch of officer. Whether you like that or not is not the issue. They are that. In other words, they have the power. When they tell you to stop, they have the same authority as your regular police. The only thing is, like, they're a special unit that goes after immigration, right? You might not like that, but that is the law and whatever. The thing is that the left don't think that the law pertains to them because of their social justice religion, right? And everybody telling them to put their bodies on the lines. Now, to show you how brainwashed these people are, and again, it's sad because, like, it's destroying half of the society. You know what I mean? These people are extreme bullies. They are. Like, they bully their way into everything in society and destroy it, right? Like, I was listening to an interview with Stephen Harper last night, the night before, And he said something. He goes, yeah. He goes, basically, he goes, they're not even left wing. He says they're just basically a nihilistic cult that just wants to destroy everything. They're not even like, progressives. They're, I've been saying this for years. It was a very interesting. Harper had a very interesting take on the current situations in the world. He's one of those guys that whether you like him, you don't like him. He's definitely an intelligent man. He was the best prime minister Canada ever had, whether you like that or not, by the numbers if you judge him across the board. But he's a very calculated man on how he speaks. Like he even in interviews. Okay, you can find interviews from the '90s where he was drunk once, and acting like a goofball. But like that was very rare behavior from him. You know what I mean? Overall, though, the man was quite conscious about what he would say and stuff like that, and knew how to stay under the radar. And he made a lot of good observations of where he thinks we're going. Like he's basically saying, "Look, China's outplaying us. Like they're outplaying us. We got to change some things, but basically we got to deal with the radical left. Like we have to deal with them because they're going to destroy everything, everything around them, right?" So yeah, you have all these mayors out there calling for people to go and protest and challenge ICE and do this and put their bodies on the line and stuff like that. Basically inciting violence, but also encouraging mentally ill people to go and put themselves in harm's way. When you challenge the people with the guns, sometimes they pull the guns on you. You know what I mean? And they are in the right to do it, especially ICE officers being shot at. These guys are going to be on edge. They're going to be on edge. They're not going to take the chance of, oh, well, maybe she didn't mean it. You know what I mean? Like they're not the left. It doesn't matter, and everybody's notice will say this too. It doesn't matter like showing the evidence to the left. There's no nuance with the left. It's black and white. You are the evil Nazi, racist, bad guy. It doesn't matter if she hit him, and tried to run him over or not, and she did. She did. She clearly did. The only thing the courts have to decide whether it was excessive force, whether he pulled the gun or not. I don't think they're going to find. But again, it's hard to say. It's political, so they could just convict him just because it's political, right? Which is not a good precedence for the law enforcement because they're either going to do nothing and we're going to see more chaos and violence. Which again, you look at all these left wing, in Seattle and stuff like that, where they got all these like homeless encampments and stuff like that, where the left loves this chaos. They love, and you have to understand, they don't care about these immigrants. They don't. They just care about hating white people. They hate the patriarchy and colonial. It's their religion, right? And so, yeah, I went off on this officer like everybody else did. But now I don't know. I can kind of see, if I was in his situation, would I have pulled my gun? Definitely. Would I have shot? That's another story. I don't know. In the moment, who knows, right? But I definitely would have pulled my gun for sure. I'm sure the other officers pulled their guns too. It's just he happened to pop a few rounds off. The only question for me was, were my rounds going to go through her and hit one of my fellow officers? That's the only thing I would have been concerned about. She's trying to kill me. I don't care what her intentions are. Once a 3,600-pound vehicle is, I'm bouncing off the side of a 3,600-pound vehicle. You know what I mean? And the fact that the bullets went through the windshield means that he was in a spot where, he'd already been dragged by a vehicle before. Maybe the man shouldn't be on the job. We could critique that, saying, okay, well, this guy's going to be too on edge because he's already been through that before, right? Maybe psychologically way too trigger happy because, never again, right? Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But that said, even if that never happened to him before, you could still make the case that it was self-defense. Bullets through the front windshield. Well, you have to be at an angle to put them in the front windshield. You know what I mean? But again, the idea that the media's already got the guy convicted, right? And that you could end up with a left-wing judge. If you have a left-wing judge and jury, that's it. The guy's getting convicted regardless of the evidence, which means more vigilante justice. We've been allowing, and I've been talking about this, this is one of my predictions of the year, was massive vigilante justice from the left, right? And we're seeing it. And if you get too much of that, the left is going to have a really bad day when the other side, which is the right, starts to not believe in rule of law, which that illusion is starting to fade, that there's rule of law, and you're seeing it around the world. The language is changing again. I always say, every time I say the language is changing, something radical in the world happens, right? You guys know that have followed me for long periods of time. So the left, you can't reason with them, can't bargain with them. It doesn't matter what the evidence is for them. And we live in a world now, like, how do you get an honest jury? You know what I mean? It is crazy. It is really crazy. So that's my take. I'm not happy that the lady's dead or anything like that, but what I'm saying, I could see how it happened. And I told you stuff like this was going to happen. I'm not the only one saying that. I mean, it's everybody. Yeah, of course this was going to happen. Even people on the left, like, oh, of course this was going to happen. It's just their take is that it's just because, right wing Nazis, whatever. Like there's no nuance there, and that's the whole thing. Like, the left is a radical religious group. They're in Bolshevik 2.0 mode, right? So anyway, that's what's going on there. We'll see how that plays out. And of course, the left is ready to double down. But one thing that's bizarre, and this shows you that it's a cult, is so far the vigils for this lady. Okay, there's one lady. She shows up, and again, people made all kinds of critiques, like, why is this like? Do these people not work? How do they have the time and to drive all over the place and not and protest? You know what I mean? Like, obviously they're funded, so there's organizations there, right? So when people say that, oh, Antifa doesn't exist, that's just a fallacy or fake news. It's like, no, they very much do exist, and they're well funded. They're not funded on the official, but on the back. I mean, these ICE agents are like, you can find video footage. Like, yeah, we're being followed by, a vehicle. And that vehicle usually follows them around so the protesters know where to go. Who's funding that? You know what I mean? Like, who's obstructing the justice? And the whole reason why this woman was challenged was that she was blocking ICE from doing their job, and they told her to get back. All she had to do was get back. That's it. Every time, why don't you just fucking comply? And well, I'll tell you why they don't just comply, because they have no sense of self-preservation. They believe they are self-righteous. They are zealots, right? They do not think for a second any harm will come to them because they are morally superior and just. You might not agree with that, but that's exactly, if you listen to these people, that's the way they think. They, like, I go with everybody else's critique that I bet you she never thought in a million years that, like, she could run this guy over and he wouldn't shoot her. You know what I mean? Like, she never thought she'd die. Like, this is why the other ladies, like Thelma and Louise, drive, baby, drive. Like, they really believe in their heads that, nothing bad can happen, and they'll get away scot-free because there's no consequence, right? That's what happens when you let rule of law slip too far. And we're going to see it over and over and over again. Like, that's the thing. And of course, we're going to see a lot of ICE agents getting murdered by Antifa, right? Which is going to bring down a much heavier hand after that. Like, if you think the tolerance is low now for these guys, just wait till a few more murders of them. And the guys have been murdered. Now, the thing is these people don't care about the migrants. They just care about sticking it to the, Donald Trump or the white guy. And that's what they're going to convict this guy on is, it's like, they're not convicting him on the evidence. They're going to convict him on, we need to make the Trump administration look bad. That's what I mean. It's lawfare. And that should be the most treasonous thing any judge or lawyer can do, is partake in lawfare. I think that deserves the death penalty. It really does, because if we have activist judges, then they're not judges. You know what I mean? If we have activist lawyers, they have to stay within the frames of the law. You know what I mean? But yet we have to hold, if everybody gets held to hate speech laws, well, it's got to be, what's got to be good for the goose got to be good for the gander. So if the left can go out and promote going after the ICE agents and throwing their bodies on the line, what does throw your body on the line mean, right? But anyway, you watch the vigils, there's one lady, and you could just see the mental hemorrhage this lady's having. And she's like sitting there crying, and she's being interviewed by a news organization. And she's like, I don't know how I feel about this because I'm a privileged white woman, and she was white, that means she's privileged. And if I come and I cry and whatever, and I mourn her, that might be violence against the minorities or whatever. You know what I mean? Microaggressions. You know the buzzwords that they use, right? And this lady is truly conflicted, because white peers are violence, right? Like that. This is the language they use. Again, I can usually tell the level of somebody's brainwashing just by the language they use. You know, it starts with something as, oh, well, it's the current year. You get that argument. Okay, they're on the left. Current year, everything's problematic. I hate that word with a passion. Problematic. It's just as it's a word that is very useful, sure, but it's just a word that it comes from the left most of the time. Beware the buzzword. I've always been saying this, right? So anyway, there's another visual, and it's a black guy going, don't say her name because that's reserved for black and brown people. Basically, so yeah, and they're all cheering. All these white progressive, mostly women, sitting there cheering that this is a good thing. We're going to mourn her, but we can't say her name out loud because that might offend black people and brown people or whatever, because that's considered violence. It's white peers are violence, whatever. You can't even make this shit up, right? And you're watching it, and you're baffled. You're baffled, but it's like I understand why it's there, and I understand why it's out, but it's still so bizarre to see, guys. Again, not to jump off topic here, but my book 2060 Dystopia, okay, is based upon where this bizarreness is going to end up. By 2060, right? Yeah, not good, not good. So yeah, that's where that's at. Other things, you had a left wing guy. I heard two things. I don't know. Again, this is why I don't want to be the up to the date when crazy things happen in the world. I got to be the first guy to report on it because it's almost always 100% wrong. Doesn't matter who does it, whether it's on the left or on the right. By the time you sort through what's true and what's not true or what's verifiable, the story is always way different. Just like this one. Like it's like, oh no, this guy just jumped in front of the vehicle and just shot her for no reason. Then when you see multiple angles, it's like, oh, okay, no, she hit him while he was shooting back. You know what I mean? Yeah, big story. You see the wheels turning again. You can't unsee that. Like it's like, no, the vehicle was able to go the other way. She turned into him. You see the front of the vehicle turning into him. So he didn't step in front of the vehicle like I originally thought. And everyone's like, oh, it's because of the bad training and stuff. Like these guys aren't trained. These guys are trained fucking well. They're trained very well. There'd be more of them dead if they weren't. The amount of restraint these guys show, it's actually quite incredible. And I guess you're going to get a nice officer that's going to snap and just start shooting progressives. I mean, they're human beings, right? So people can only tolerate so much. But it's again, you watch the ICE stuff, all these leftists attacking the ICE people and jumping in front of them and screaming at them. Yeah, it's going to end badly. But it's all the organizations that are paying to encourage this. This is where the true evil is, and that needs to be dealt with. Legally, for sure. But anyway, yeah, so JD Vance, again, I don't know exactly what happened here, but a crazy left-wing Antifa guy either shot at his door or pounded on his door with a hammer. I don't know exactly what happened. I know JD Vance, fan, but I mean, he does say some good things once in a while, but no, I wouldn't trust the guy as far as you could throw him. I don't trust anyone. You know what I mean? But the thing is that, like I said, again, it's like we're about a third through January and almost all my predictions for the year have come true. But I said, January would be such a crazy month. January, you're going to see like 10 years worth of last 10 years worth of craziness all impacted in 2 months, right? So yes, there's definitely revolutions by spring. Mostly left-wing violence, mostly left-wing vigilantes. But you are going to see the right counter in the same path. It's going to become asymmetrical. Just because people are so fed up with these people. Like, they're insufferable, right? Uh, so yeah, so there's already been an attempt on Putin. We've had Maduro kidnapped, uh, and it looks like there might have been an attempt on JD Vance. Like I said, there's going to be high-profile assassination attempts, and many of them are going to be successful. The one that's going to be the highest profile is probably the execution of Donald Trump. I'm not calling for it, but I do believe at this point, listening to veterans, listening to, again, I look at the big picture and I connect all the dots, listening to language out there, just hearing the disgruntlement in particularly veterans of another fake war, particularly the Iraqi veterans and Afghanistan veterans. Like they know this is all bullshit. Uh, the only reason why I cut the Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans slack is that they didn't know when they were there. Like the internet wasn't the thing it is now, and they didn't really realize that okay, we're going to be just protecting the opium fields and stealing the oil. They really did believe that it was for weapons of mass destruction, the war on terror, women and children and democracy. They believed all that stuff going in, like all the wars before them. It's only after where they see that it was just a money making scheme for the Israelis and for the Greater Israel Project, for all these weapons contractors that made billions. It was never about the women and children, democracy, like that. And then, of course, just the shit they did, murdering 1.5 million Iraqis and some, and leaving the country in complete shambles, right? Yeah, so when the Iraqi veterans tell you no, what Donald Trump did in Venezuela was a bad thing, I believe them. But I also believe it's going to be either one or more veterans are going to assassinate Trump when he starts going after Iran. And right now, they can't really go after Iran. Donald Trump wants to. And I do believe these protests, like all the time, that are going on in Iran, it's like the second week of it. But the Iranians usually always get they get it wrangled. Because what the Iranians do is they know that yes, Iran has a lot of problems right now. They're running out of drinking water, stuff like that. I mean, it is the desert, right? So they get these uprisings every now and then. Some of them are organic, but most of the time they know that it's basically a color revolution coming in from the Western backed countries. So what they do is they find who's spearheading the protests, and they either arrest them or kill them or whatever. Usually they end up killing them because there's a 1 in 2 chance that they either got a grassroots, what do you call it, stop a grassroots rebellion, or they basically killed a CIA or a Mossad agent. There's a 1 in 2 chance that it's like either way they win, right? You might not like that. I'm not a fan of the Iranian regime either, but it works for them. And even the Israeli Mossad has said it's almost impossible to subvert the Iranians, like trying to overthrow them that way, right? But you got Donald Trump out there looking for pretext to attack Iran. But the second he does, like Israel, they haven't replenished all those missiles. They pretty much went through all the Iron Dome missiles on the planet, right? So they don't have enough. Like it's going to take decades to rebuild all those missiles, right? They went through half the U.S. stockpile and all their own. So they're not ready for another 200 rocket barrage per day. And if the Iranians want to step it up to like 500 rockets or 2,000 rockets a day, goodbye Israel, right? There's nothing they can do about it. The Iranians are in a much better position than people imagine. It's only a question of when do the Iranians take the gloves off, like really take the gloves off. Everything they've done so far has been calculated. Like most of their rockets go towards military targets. If they really wanted to kill the Israelis, they would just target, just carpet bomb with rockets, right? The Israelis, even with their nukes, wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And the U.S. Navy, they'll be sunk in 5 minutes. We're going to talk about the U.S. Navy a lot. I've been really hard on the U.S. pirate Navy. That's what they are right now, is a pirate Navy. There's no honorable U.S. Navy like that. That's a bygone era. Now they're just pirates. They've turned into the bad guy. But we'll get into that. So the Iranian thing, like Donald Trump's like out there going, okay, don't you dare harm these protesters, or we're gonna do bad things to you, right? So you got protesters running out there around with AKs and flamethrowers and barbecuing like Iranian, Iranian guardsmen or whatever. Yeah, if that was happening in the states, yes, the National Guard would fucking put bullets in you. They'd turn you into Swiss cheese. They wouldn't tolerate it, right? And then whatever, say, America, don't you dare fight back against these these terrorists. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's bad for the Iranian people, no matter which way it goes. But trust me, Donald Trump does not give a shit about Americans, let alone Iranians. He doesn't care about Iranian democracy. He's just looking for pretext to go fight Israel's war. That's all it is. That's all it'll ever be. Donald Trump doesn't hate the Americans. He hates everybody else, but he doesn't hate the Americans. But the only thing is that he's indifferent to the Americans. He doesn't really care if they do well or not. All he cares about is Israel. He's Israel's guy, like I've been saying since the end of the middle of his first term. That's all he's ever shown, is that he cares about Israel, nothing about Israel. Um, you know, like other than like his big donor investor class, whatever they want, that's what he does. A lot don't want to hear that, but you got to judge them by their actions, man. Not what they say, but what they do. Well, you can judge them by what they say as well, but Donald Trump not doing so well. Like every time he opens his mouth, it costs the Americans like 10,000 jobs. It's so bad. It's so bad what's going on down there. But yet there's still part of his base that's holding on. I can imagine it's just the Zionist faction of his base, because anybody else, on the right is just like going, "What the fuck is he doing?" You know what I mean? Like, it's he betrayed his own base so badly, and everybody in America, and not only that, all his trading partners. I mean, the Americans are at war with like 170 some odd countries right now, economically, and physically with others. It's bizarre, but it is what it is. So we'll see how the Iranian thing shapes up. I do believe they're going to attack again. I don't know when, because I don't think Israel's ready to take another 12-day war. And I don't even think they could last the 12 days, maybe 3 at best, right? They really need the United States to go full in on the war on Iran. And the only way that's going to happen, okay, is if Donald Trump he has to get Iran to respond full force, like sinking a carrier group, which they can clearly do with relative ease. And I know I'm going to hear all the cheerleaders. No, they can't. You saw we didn't even lose a single guy in the Maduro raid. Yeah, about that. Like, okay, can you say inside job? Look, the Venezuelans right now, the loyalists that are still left, which is most of Maduro's regime. Like, you have to factor in, maybe Maduro set this up, saying, "Look, make it look good. I'm going to betray my country. You're going to get the oil. You're going to get this. Just pay me off. Come and get me. I'll tell you where and when." He could have done that. Like, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but it's a possibility that he's in on it too. But he's got to make it look good so he doesn't get executed by his own people, right? And then there's just it's a third world country technically, so a second world, third world country. Like a lot of like South America is like third world and second world countries, right? But they're not mid powers. They're not, except for maybe Brazil and Mexico, right? Like those are mid power countries, but they're very low tier mid power countries overall, right? Because like Canada would be like Canada, Sweden, Denmark, Norway is like high tier mid power country, right? And anyway, yeah, clearly, like this whole our intelligence was so good, our F-35s were so good, they were able to defeat all the air defenses. Number one, there wasn't a single missile fired. The only reason why, none of them were turned on. So obviously, somebody gave the U.S. Air Force the coordinates to where the air defense systems were, and they took them out with F-35s and drones, and I guess strikes from the ships or whatever. And they gave basically the route to fly in with the Black Hawk helicopters because the AAA should have taken the Black Hawk helicopters. Trump is going to try something stupid and grandiose like this again, but trust me, every South American country now is pretty much on alert, right? So you're not gonna. The Zu-23s do have a ability to track, but most of them are manual. You'll never detect them, in the jungle like that. And if they radio and say, yeah, you got some choppers coming in, get ready. As soon as they come over the tree line, there's no helicopter that's going to take a Zu-23 at 3 kilometers away. Like you're going to be shredded. You're going to be shredded. That'll kill whoever's on board. So obviously there was an inside job. Now that said, Venezuelan, the reports are that the Venezuelan army is going around looking for the traitors who sold out Maduro. And I can imagine those guys are going to get a very horrible death. That said, will it turn into like an Iraq where everything just devolves into a complete utter chaos of sectarian violence? I don't think so. The reason being is because the Maduro regime is still there. The only thing is just Maduro's on vacation in New York right now. Like that's the only thing that changed. So what was this all for? And people have a lot of speculations. I think Cameron McGregor and I see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. I don't agree with him on his take on everything, but a lot of time I think we're just burning the candle at different ends to come to the same conclusion. But one of the first scenario is they're stealing the resources, which is openly admitted by Donald Trump. This is what he said. This is what he's doing. However, the why, well, my theory, and I've been saying this since mid last year. As soon as he started saying we're going to steal the Venezuelan oil, and first it was about the drugs and stuff like that, and I still stand where I stand on that. I have not. The U.S. Navy is a pirate navy. These douchebags murder people at the seas. And when people say, "Oh no, well they're blowing up," they killed over 100 people in these drug boats and stuff like that, as they call them. But it's like, okay, they're drug boats. Okay, well, what drugs were on the boats? What are the names of the people you murdered? The guys clinging to the wreckage of a blown up boat, clinging to life, and you turn around and you go and you shoot them while they're in the water and murder them. What were their names? Who were they? Who'd they work for? Oh, you don't know? Then who the fuck did you murder? Drug dealers. How do you know that? Where was their day in court? Well, we had to do it that way. No, we had to do it. You could arrest these people. People would be on board with using the Navy to arrest the drug traffickers and then hold them to execute them for drug trafficking, give them the death penalty. That's fine. Everybody's on board with that. But just blowing people out of the water like a bunch of pirates, and then just calling them terrorists and whatever, what have you, well, that's no due process. That's an act of war. It's an act of piracy. So the U.S. has a pirate navy. It does not have it. There's nothing honorable about the U.S. Navy. It's a complete disgrace to the world. What happens when, like, the idea of the U.S. Navy after World War II was to patrol the high seas to fight piracy, like off the coast of Somalia or whatever, keep the trade lanes open, right? So you see a Somalian boat trying to approach your ship, and they start shooting at you, and they got AKs and stuff, and you can clearly see, yeah, they're hostiles. Okay, smoke them. You know what I mean? You got enough evidence to smoke them. You can give them a warning shot or whatever. But like again, the Somali pirates, they are quite stupid. They will attack like a fucking warship, like thinking that they can take it with these little boats. Like, you smoke them, use the 127 on them, go for it, have some fun, million bucks around, but who cares, you know what I mean? $100,000 around, but who cares, they blow them up. So the U.S. Navy went from protecting the trade lanes and seas from pirates to becoming the number one pirate navy in the world. What do you do when the flagship country, the shining beacon on the hill, the country on the hill, decides to turn tyrant, like global tyrant? Like what do we do, right? It's a sad day for the West. And all these just following orders guys. There was one U.S. Navy commander or ship captain that stood down late last year saying that he wasn't going to take part of it because it was illegal. It was like, like I get it. International law is a gray area. Does it really exist? Is it just might makes right or whatever? I know people will debate that all day. But what I'm saying to you is that, the whole point of the Nuremberg trials was that just following orders wasn't. So everybody that's been blowing, all these sailors that have been blowing people out of the water, every one of them needs to face crimes against humanity charges and the death penalty. Again, why? Because if we can't keep those guys doing the right thing, the world is going to suffer for it. Like again, if we're going to be in a zero tolerance society, we might as well do it for the great, for what's good for the society, right? Get the treasonous, get all these war hawks, get all these neocons, round them up, give them their fair day in court, charge them with crimes against humanity and illegal war, hang them high. You know what I mean? The sooner we do that, the sooner we get some brave law enforcement military. They don't exist, but they're just following orders of my paycheck is too important. That's the only guys that exist, right? So till they do the right thing, I'm going to call them out. I'm going to trash talk them. They do not deserve respect at all. The U.S. military does not deserve respect. Most militaries and law enforcement don't deserve respect right now. You want to do your jobs, fine, do your jobs. But stay within, like fucking common sense of what you should and shouldn't do. Well, the commander-in-chief just told us to go and invade another country. That was an act of war. That's an act of war no matter how you look at it. If any other country did that to any other country, everybody would be saying it's an act of war. But not the MAGA, right? It's like, no, I'm going to call you guys out. This, like the MAGA, most of them that are, the ones that are left anyway, probably about 2/3 of MAGA are no longer MAGA. Because they didn't vote for another war. They didn't vote to make Venezuela great again or steal their oil, whichever, But the whole steal the oil thing is, like I said, I think it was Donald Trump's grand chessboard, Zbigniew Brzezinski style grand chessboard, Napoleon conquest style of, if we steal all this oil, okay, and we'll be able to cut off Canada, destroy Alberta's economy, which will make them collapse. And if we can get the potash from Venezuela as well, then we can cut off Saskatchewan, and that's like one of their number one exports. We're like the number one potash suppliers in the world. And Canada will collapse economically, and then everybody will blame it on Carney, saying, "Why didn't you make a deal with Trump?" And then again, you still got people out there think, "Oh, why are you making a deal with Trump?" Because there's no deal to be made. Trump does not want to deal. Trump hates Canada with a fucking passion. It's not what he says; it's what he does. Right? The man wants to destroy us, to take us over, to steal our resources. This is why he won't rule out military force. He won't nod to it. He won't say, "Oh, well, it's a possibility," because he doesn't want to give us the upper. He doesn't want to tip us off that he's going to invade Canada. Yes, unfortunately, Canada and the United States are going to go to war. The main places is going to be the Northwest Passage and probably around the Great Lakes. That's where to watch. I believe maybe even by year's end, you'll see Trump make a move into Canada. He's clearly said our border is just an arbitrary line. He says stuff like well, Greenland. Well, Denmark just said that Greenland's theirs. Maybe it's not true. It's like, yeah, it's their territory. But if they just said it's their territory, it doesn't mean it is. Oh, Canada says the border's there, but it doesn't mean it. These are Trump's words, right? Those are words of a tyrant that wants to go to war with you. Anyway, Trump's not really a tyrant. He's more of a bully than a tyrant, right? But he could turn into a tyrant very quickly when things aren't going his way, right? That's usually how it happens. So the next war on the horizon might be a second round on Venezuela. It might be an attack on Mexico. It might be an attack on I think Guatemala or wherever he said. Us up here in Canada, Iran, Greenland. Who knows? Like he's just talking about like basically going to war with everybody, and annexing. No, he's not talking about war. He's just talking about annexing. Well, that's war. Like there's some people that's just like it's like do you not like go grab a thesaurus and a dictionary when Donald Trump speaks and then just figure out what words he's saying. You know what I mean? But you get these people that will try so hard to defend this man. At this point, he's undefendable. He's no better than Obama or Joe Biden. In fact, he's much, much worse than them. Who'd ever thunk anybody could be worse than Joe Biden for the Americans, right? But economically, he's absolutely horrible. Oh, but we're making trillions of dollars or billions of dollars off the tariffs. Yeah. No. But you're spending like $1 trillion every 3 months. And no end in sight of even attempting to fucking balance the budget. And the easiest way to do it is cut off foreign aid. Don't go to war with everybody. If Donald Trump wanted to fix things, he could fix things. Or at least attempt. He's not even attempting. He's doing whatever the Israeli lobby wants. And the globalists. Like he's their guy, not our guy. It's just he was good at fooling people. That's all. And most MAGA didn't vote for this. And again, the betrayal of this is why I say he's most likely to get assassinated by his own side is because of the betrayal, right? But anyway, of his own base. So we're watching all this going on now. The rhetoric with Greenland is really pissing people off. It's pissing Americans off. And again, most Americans don't want what Donald Trump is selling, right? They don't want to annex Greenland. Now, the thing is that, and this is, a lot of Americans are not aware of this because most Americans only watch American news. They don't listen to anybody else around the world. It's just the way the Americans are. They are kind of self-centered in that way, because most of the world is always paying attention to them, right? Fine, whatever. Not judging, I'm just saying that it just kind of is what it is. But they're not realizing how the rest of the world is responding, particularly to the Greenland threats. And I know how the Americans kind of think in general, that they're undefeatable, blah, 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 especially after seeing like this, cooperative coup going on in Venezuela. So they think they can take anybody. Like there's going to be people begging to go to war with Iran because they think they're going to be able to fight Iran without a single loss. And I'm just like, if the Iranians decide to actually hit you back, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing the U.S. can do about if the Iranians say there's no more U.S. bases allowed in the Middle East. There's nothing the Americans can do about it. Nothing. I mean, they could fight a war, and maybe over, say, a 10-year period, you could win a war against the Iranians, but you'd lose 200 million Americans in the process of trying to take the place. You know what I mean? Even if you nuke the shit out of it, it's not going to make a difference. There's 91 million people there. You know what I mean? And trust me, they might not like their regime, but like what's happened in Venezuela. Most Venezuelans don't like Maduro. I think we can all agree on that. But they're like, you stole the tyrant, our tyrant. They don't like being invaded by the United States even more. And they didn't like their family members getting killed in this airstrike. You know what I mean? So Venezuelans are very pissed. Now, I know the footage out there, and again, take it with a grain of salt because all the protests you see that are everybody's rallying, oh, Maduro's gone, this is great. A lot of those are like fake news. Some of them are AI, a lot of them are from World Cup soccer tournaments. Some of them are, but most of the people are, kind of staying quiet apparently. In Caracas, there's a few people in the streets, but not too many. And they're more pissed off at, like most of the South American countries, they're very pissed off at what Donald Trump has done. How dare he? You know what I mean? And all the neocon types there, oh yeah, but Maduro was a bad guy. He was a dictator and a tyrant and all this. Okay, yeah. Okay, if that's the benchmark, then when do we go get Netanyahu? When are you going to go and fuck with Kim Jong-un? Oh, you're not? Because he's got nukes and ICBMs that can actually reach America? Okay, well, you're going to give him a pass? Okay, fine. You're going to get the genocidal maniac in Israel a pass because, Like they used U.S. bombs for the Israeli Greater Israel Project, to allow Israelis to carpet bomb, displace 2 million people, and kill about 100,000 or more. We'll never know the actual death toll. So that's not a tyrant, but a guy who just happens to be sitting on all the oil, like one of the largest reserves of oil in the world. Oh, but he's a tyrant, right? And of course, again, this is another Israeli-backed war. I mean, it always is. All wars are Israeli wars. All wars are banker wars, right? And you even have like the Freudian slips on like the mainstream where it's like, this guy, oh yeah, this is going to be great for us. I mean, Venezuela. Now let's talk about the oil. So, okay, Alberta right now is kind of sitting quiet on this whole thing because I think what they're doing is, okay, well, we got to come up with a new strategy. Like, I'm sure Danielle Smith now understands that Donald Trump wants to wipe her province out. And as much as a lot of Albertans might not know, but you actually have a lot of fiscal problems right now, too. I mean, it's everywhere in the country. It's not just there. So Danielle Smith, who I do like, who I think for the most part is pretty good, has to appease these, pander to these secession movements a little bit just to kind of keep them at quail. But she doesn't, she's a federalist. She's a federalist, right? And most Albertans understand that most of the separatist stuff is coming in from U.S. propaganda. It's trackable. It's trackable. Some of it is organic. I can acknowledge that. But when you really look at it, it's like a lot of these guys are dual citizens and stuff like that. It's like, okay, yeah. And again, it's dirty politics is what it is. But most Albertans, yeah, they've got grievances. There's no doubt about that. Every province has grievances. I get that. But no, they're looking at this as, okay, well, if Trump is going to try to destroy our oil fields, again, for those Maple MAGA types that actually want to become a part of the 51st state, like they're delusional. Like, I mean, if you're looking at the states saying, oh, they have it so much better than us, I'm like, you're not understanding the problem. Everybody is in the everything crisis mode. The United States is actually worse off than most countries because of the incredible debt, right? They can barely keep the government running. But yet they have all this money for war all the time, right? Gee, I wonder why they can't keep the government running. But Alberta now has a probably 4 to 5 year window to divert its gas and oil to other customers. This is already taking place, and Trump is already, like, Trump's hand, okay, on the Venezuelan oil again to destroy Alberta, to create secession in in Canada so that he can annex or have like a secession movement and join. Alberta joins, and you see all the propaganda, all the Western provinces are going to join Canada, become all these Steve Tooley type. I'm not saying Steve Tooley's doing it, but those types where like the Clyde do somethings and people like that. Oh, look at this. We're that's it for Canada now. Look, there's now the 51st state stuff, right? It's delusional, but it's there, and they're going on about it. And they're like, okay, well, first off, anybody that's on board with the 51st state thing, if you really hate it in Canada so much, move. If you want to be a part of the states, go move there. You have the ability to do that now. But anybody that thinks that if the Americans took over Alberta, that they would still be able to keep their good, high-paying oil rig jobs, I've got a news flash for you. No, and this is already happening within Canada and the United States anyway, is no, you're going to be H-1B'd. Yeah, no, those oil jobs you're going to lose those jobs in the transition, and it's going to be foreign workers taking those jobs, not you. So no, Trump doesn't care about Canadians. He doesn't care about Albertans. He doesn't even care about his own. Why would you think he would care about Canadians in any capacity? He cares about stealing our resources. Like Trump has the bull say, well, it's not fair that Canada has 20% of the world's fresh water. Well, it's in our borders. It's not about fair. It's in our borders. It's ours. He doesn't like that. He thinks it belongs to them. He thinks the Northwest Passage is again belongs to them. Like, it's like, Because while we change the laws in the States, therefore the rest of the world has to obey our laws. It doesn't work like that, right? And yes, pushback is there, but push will come to shove, and the Americans are not ready for that. When there are countries that can't stand, and I know no American believes this because they're so convinced that their military is unbeatable. Gee, how many times have we seen that in history, right? When the track record says, no, not only are you unbeatable, but the American military can't defeat third world powers like Iraq and Afghanistan. They can't even beat that. You can kill a lot more people. Can't beat Vietnam. Can't beat the list goes on and on and on. The Americans haven't won a war since World War II, and there were 16 other nations joining them. When they joined in later. There was already 15 nations fighting one nation. Or two nations, I guess you could say. Really. So yeah, you look at it. We're about the United States is about to go to war, and Americans are not ready for this at all. You're about to go to a physical shooting war with about 40 to 45 countries within the next couple of years. Donald Trump, I agree with Canadian Prepper, because Steve Bannon has been pretty bold about saying that, no, Donald Trump will be president again in 2028 or whatever it is. And the only way that happens is if there's martial law in the election. Trump basically has to do the Zelensky approach, right? Basically just, suspend elections and that's it. And maybe that's what this ICE thing is about, just suspending elections and whatever. But Steve Bannon, again, he tends to say the quiet part out loud. And it's like, well, no, because we need to do this to get, we got to get the job done, and we need to do this and this and this. And he's all for the Monroe Doctrine or Don Rowe Doctrine, however you want to say it. And basically, our sphere of influence, blah, 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 which I think Stephen Harper sums it up well. And I've been saying for years, where, the Chinese are out playing, they're better at business than what the Americans are. You can't bully your way into business, and Donald Trump does not understand this. He's not capable. He's not a stupid man, but he's not a forward-thinking person by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people are, he's 4D chess. It's either 4D chess, brilliant move, or the guy just is what you're looking at. You know what I mean? He's just off the cuff all the time. He's Herculean. He's very good. His instincts are usually good. But he's no good as a long-term thinker. Where if you look at a real leader like Xi Jinping, a very scary man on the planet, probably the most powerful person on the planet is Xi Jinping. That is not said with admiration and respect. That's said out of fear, because this guy is fucking scary. This guy thinks like 500 years into the future. Why? Because his advisors think 500 years into the future. Not, how's this going to play out on Twitter? He doesn't do Twitter diplomacy. You know what I mean? Once in a while he responds, just to kind of tell, the polite Chinese way of telling people to fuck off. He does that, but the same way Putin does. But they're very choice selective of their words, right? So the thing is that what the Americans don't realize, they just dismiss when Trump makes these threats, particularly like the Greenland threat and the 51st state threat, right? And many Americans can't understand why Canadians would be upset with this. And about 80% of Americans are completely against the idea of annexing anybody. Why? Because they're saying rational, good people, whether they're on the left or on the right. And yes, you can say that. You can say there are rational people elsewhere. But then you've got maybe about 15% or so, or 18% that are like, well, if Canada wants to willingly become a part of the United States, would be, as long as it was they unanimously wanted it, we'd be more than happy to have them. And that's not good or bad. That's just like, well, okay, no, if they want it, sure, whatever. And then there's the 2% of Americans, which these guys can fuck off and die, that just want to go to war with everybody. Yeah, let's annex this place, let's annex that place. And these are usually the people that never have to fight these damn things, right? But Greenland, obviously, after seeing what happened in Venezuela, is terrified of what the United States is going to do. So, what I believe Trump is going to do first is build up Greenland by, I think there's like a couple hundred people on the 8 bases that are there right now. And then overnight, like send like say like 14,000 people or something like that, and say, what are you going to do about it? And then send like another 20,000, which is going to basically trigger the Nordic Defense Pact that's going on between Canada and the Nordic countries, right? And France, and again, the Americans are not paying attention to this. And I know they're going to dismiss it as soon as I say it, but they're not realizing exactly what the most scary idea here, okay, is that, okay, France and Germany are ready to go. The French are like, okay, again, I hate Macron. He's a horrible cocksucker. He's literally a cocksucker. But he's like, no, France will, he won't stand up for his own country, but he's like, no, France is ready to face off in Greenland if we have to defend the Greenlanders. No, he's like, nobody's taking Greenland by force. Democracy will be upheld, blah, blah, blah. Right? And I know Americans will just prove that. Say, oh, yeah, but the French were cowards in World War II. No, they weren't. They were invaded by a superior military. Half of them were sympathetic to it. Half of them weren't. Right? And the French resistance, these guys basically died fighting with pots and pans. That you don't get much braver than that. Maybe call them foolish, but no, these people fought and bled for their own country many times, and World War II was no exception. Yeah. Anyway, but the thing is that no, if you have, these are the countries that are ready to step up, even not fully committed militarily yet, but with the language of ready to defend and do not attempt. Okay, obviously the first people opposing a U.S. invasion will be the Greenlanders themselves, right? So when U.S. soldiers open fire on Greenlandic people and kill them, this is going to create a shitstorm around the world. There will be backlash. There's already backlash for just the rhetoric, meaning Americans are losing jobs because people are not buying U.S. products. I love U.S. products. I do. Most people do, but there's the Canadian boycott is hurting America much worse than what they had anticipated. Yeah, we're getting hits too, but I got other information that I got to talk about where Canada's done some really fucking big, quiet but extremely big moves against the United States, and I don't even think the states are aware of it because again, the self-centeredness of Trump. Again, he was supposed to be the good guy, and he turned into this complete asshole, right? But anyway, yeah. So Denmark, the Kingdom of Denmark, Netherlands would be the first to defend with their military, and Donald Trump dismisses this. He's like, oh, they've got nothing. That's the first military you'll have to fight. Yes, the U.S. military can take the Danish military, whatever, but not without losses. The Danish military is small, much smaller, but they're better equipped to fight in the Arctic than the Americans are. The Americans, out of all the Nordic regions, the Americans are the least prepared to fight in the Arctic. They got the numbers, but if you add up the Nordic alliance, then you bring in the other countries that are coming. Finland, probably Norway and Sweden. Sweden probably for sure. Finland for sure. Denmark, Kingdom of Denmark for sure. Greenland for sure, obviously. Iceland, I'm not sure. Iceland, I think, is just kind of neutral because they're tiny as well. They're like Greenland, very tiny population, like 500,000 people or something like that. Canada, okay. Now, if you face off against particularly Finns and Canadians in the Arctic, good fucking luck. Good luck. Guys, I don't just go with the cheerleader stuff at all. I look at who knows how to do what. Particularly the Finns. If you do not want a winter war against the Finns. They've proven they know how to, it's not about the weaponry. Like, the Finns put it well. Okay, and you could ask the British about this, that have trained alongside Canadians up in the Arctic, and anybody that trains alongside the Canadians, even including Americans, that train alongside Canadians up in the Arctic. Like you got Americans getting, from California getting back home with frostbite. You got Canadians running around in t-shirts, right, up in the Arctic. Minus 0 degrees. This is Finland's take. 0 degrees. Everything functions. Okay, you're cold, wet, damp. Somebody catches a cold, but they can fight, right? Minus 10. I'm going with Celsius here. Minus 10. People start getting cold, they get sick, they get the fever. Everything still functions fairly well, no problem. Minus 20. People get sick, few people get frostbite, batteries and stuff vehicles start hard to start, batteries become hard to maintain, and they go dead. Minus 30. Tons of people get frostbite. Vehicles really hard to start. Diesel fuel is almost impossible to keep ungelled. Diesel fuel gels up. Avgas fuel, like the stuff just doesn't function in the fucking cold. Minus 40. People die of exposure within 24 hours or less. Tons of frostbite. Almost nothing fucking works. And you have to preheat every fucking diesel thing, generator, whatever, just to get it to start. Minus 50, which is the rare. You're fighting outside in minus 50 is almost a guaranteed death sentence. It's almost, you're more likely to die from exposure than the enemy. The number one weapon in the Arctic is not your tanks. It's not your aircraft. Aircraft don't like to fly in minus 50. Yes, a handful of F-35s can work in minus 50. Most of them can. And even the ones that can, there's still a whole bunch of prep just to get those things. Like, you can't just send them up in a whim. You know what I mean? These things have to stay in heated hangars. Have to be prepared to go. And again, the turnaround time, the maintenance is double, triple, whatever. But at minus 50, basically, your number one number one weapon is, and number one thing to defend against is Mother Nature herself. And the tactics of the Arctic are very simple. It's not about moving heavy tanks. It's about, okay, they're there. The Russians have landed. The Russians know how to fight in the Arctic as well. Okay, let's say the Americans land on Greenland, okay, and they go to their nice heated bases. Okay, you put a mortar right onto the diesel generator. You don't have to take out the base. You either use drones or mortars. You take out that, okay? But you wait till the coldest night, the dead of night. You do that. You run, you hide, let the drones search for you everywhere, whatever. And if you got, light air defense, you can shoot down the drones if the missile will function properly. Okay. By morning, half the people are freezing to death. You mortar them again. You take out the fuel. You cut the power off. You cut the gas and oil off. You're dead with it. You could have thousands of guys up there dead within a week. You do not want to fight Canadians in the Arctic. The Canadians are designed to fight in the Arctic the same way that the Finns are and some others, where the idea is to stay alive, like our winter gear. If you've ever went into an army surplus store and just go look at the Canadian winter gear, it's next level. Like, people around the world buy like the Ukrainians to fight in the winter. They've been getting we've been giving them our stuff because it works. Our type of, it's and again, just functioning with all this fucking layers of clothing on you, right? So the Americans are not prepared. They don't have enough equipment up there. They have a handful of tanks that can function in the Arctic, and even at that, even if you have a ton of tanks that can function in the Arctic, there's still another problem. How do you move a tank in the Arctic through heavy snow? You simply can't, right? How do you, what if it's in the springtime? Okay, well, fine, yeah, okay, we'll roll tanks across the Arctic. Okay, now how do you do it? How do you make it 3 kilometers without ripping a track off because of all the jagged rocks You know, like the Arctic is a fucking beast of an area. Like I've never been there. My dad's been there. My dad's been to the very top of Canada up to Alert, right? And trust me, like it's a different, like it's frozen tundra all year round there, even in the summertime. And trust me, like like even four wheelers going off road with four wheelers, like you're going to tear up those tires like something severe. You can't just move things quickly in the Arctic. You know what I mean? Like you make your base, you defend the base, right? So taking Greenland out with air power, yeah, you could do that. You can kill every Greenlander, but then you have to hold it. And you have to do this without getting taken out by Finnish air defense systems, Swedish air defense systems, Canadian air defense systems, French air defense systems, German air defense systems, Danish air defense systems. List goes on and on and on. Possibly British. The British haven't committed to anything yet. But that said, there's really, and I know how the Americans will dismiss everything that our military can wipe out all those militaries. You probably can, and everybody said, look, if Trump does this, it's the end of NATO, and that's fine. If it's the end of NATO because new alliances can be made. If the Americans don't want to be a part of NORAD or want us in NORAD, that's fine. We'll go to loan, but we're better together. Every maybe not every general, but a lot of generals, U.S. generals, are like, no, we need Canada and NORAD. We really do need them. Without them, like most of the like Canada has the second largest Arctic coastline of any country in the world, next to Russia, right? And if you keep us out of NORAD, there's a huge blind spot there. You know what I mean? That the Americans, like, because America only has Alaska, right? It's not very much. They only have 2 functioning icebreakers out of the 5 that could do anything. And again, you got Donald Trump going on there talking about how Canada is not pulling its weight in the Arctic when it's like, okay, yeah. So we have the second largest, okay, the Russians have the largest icebreaker fleet. We have the second largest icebreaker fleet in the world, 19 icebreakers. And Trump with 2 icebreakers, is functioning icebreakers, is telling us that we're not pulling our weight when most Americans are trading on Canadian icebreakers, or Arctic patrol ship. We have our Harry DeWolf patrol boats are like, they're not true warships, but they patrol the Arctic and the Antarctica. Like, what I mean? Like, but yet we're not pulling our weight, right? Like, man is like fucking insufferable. Like, stupidity is insufferable to me. So, especially when it's done with such pompous arrogance. You know what I mean? But the one country that is committed to fighting the Americans, over Greenland is France. Now you say, yeah, well, the French this, the French that. Okay, here's the problem with the French. Number one, the French has a weapon system setups as completely 100% self-reliant, like the Russians, like the Chinese, and for the most part, like the Americans, where they don't have all these military partnerships. So in other words, they supply everything from within house. And if you could say, okay, well, the Americans could take the French. Okay, here's the scenario. French Rafales come in around, flying in low level with Exocet missiles, okay? And you got 6 French Rafales, okay? That's 12 missiles. They burrow around some Arctic tundra, bang, suddenly open water, there's a carrier group. They turn, they come back, you might shoot down 2 or 3 of them. But they've sunk 2 destroyers and damaged 6 others, and badly damaged and crippled a U.S. aircraft carrier. Okay, so that's raid 1. And shot down 2 enemy aircraft in the process. Okay, and they lost 2 in the process. Okay, scenario 2. Now you've got a U.S. aircraft carrier drifting in the Arctic, getting, pushing up against Arctic ice and everything like that. Okay? Suddenly, from out of nowhere, ship blows into pieces, cut in half. You've got one of these brand new Suffin Barracuda class submarines, uses the quiet tether line to let the F-21 torpedo come out, and it just goes right in underneath the aircraft carrier, boom! right underneath two other destroyers. Boom, boom, and completely undetected. Now you've lost 6 warships out of your group of 12 to 14, and you've got a severely damaged aircraft carrier sinking. Okay, now these guys have got to get saved, right? Black Hawk helicopters start evacuating people from the aircraft carrier and other things. Just as they're taking off, here comes another Exocet missile, and what do you call it? The Mistral missile, or whatever they call it, comes out of nowhere. Bang, bang, bang. Where are these things coming from? Oh, a bunch more Mirage 2000s do high-speed pass. You shoot down all 6 Mirage 2000s, but they sunk another 2 aircraft, hit the aircraft carrier another 2 times, killing, probably about 1,000 people on there. Shot down 6 helicopters, and now sunk another destroyer. So now you have 3 destroyers left. Another torpedo goes off. You have 2 destroyers left. Bang, another one gone. Another one gone. And a total of 10 torpedoes. 20 minutes later, after the next round, the last batch of all 30 torpedoes, boom, there goes the aircraft carrier. With overstaffed, we'll say between 3,000 to 5,000 people to the bottom, plus the other 160 to 240 people in the other aircraft, the other ships, right? America says, okay, fuck it, we're going to nuke France. While the missiles are in launch, in comes from warships, from submarines, whatever, cruise missiles from France. They hit New York City, they hit Washington, they hit Norfolk, they hit Edwards Air Force Base, they hit this, they hit the Pentagon, they hit whatever, they hit Los Angeles, they hit everything like that. And then you realize, oh yeah, the French are a nuclear power, superpower as well. Nobody calls the French a superpower, but they are a superpower. You have nukes, you're a superpower. Doesn't mean you're a profitable superpower, but you're superpower. So would that be the worst case scenario? So you lose millions and millions of people, millions of Americans, 10 to 20 million Americans. The war still keeps going. You now have German U-boats hunting down U.S. warships and everything like that. And there's only 240 warships that the Americans have, right? And that's okay. It's the biggest navy in the world, but the Chinese are catching up. But and 68 submarines. Now, obviously, anything in mothballs like the old Los Angeles class, if they're not being deconstructed, those things will be like taken out by cruise missiles on land before they can reach the water again. That said, you've got really extremely quiet French-built, not very many of them, but you've got these Scorpion class subs. You've got these the New Suffren class, even though there's I think only one of them, but like this thing is like a hunter killer like you wouldn't believe, right? And then some of the older ones, and then you've got all the French warships. You got all this, you got all that. Then you got the German Navy. There's another 20, 30 warships. You got the Canadian Navy. There's another 12 frigates and 12 corvettes. And if we probably won't have our new destroyer online by that time. Maybe we put back 2 destroyers. So Canada and the United States battles it out in the Atlantic, backed up by the Germans in the Atlantic and the French in the Atlantic. Let's say the Americans, with their air power and everything like that, are able to take out the entire Canadian Navy, whatever, but not without losing 20 aircraft. Okay, a few P-8 Poseidons, whatever. They lose those and lose F-16s. They lose F-18s, whatever. And then they lose 4 Virginia-class submarines, 2 Seawolves, and they lose 12 destroyers, right? Severely, and another aircraft carrier. Okay, they've done that. But the German Air Force, the Canadian Air Force, Canadian coastal defenses, Swedish, join up with the Swedes and the Denmark and whatever, and Norway. Suddenly, U.S. warships getting sunk from shore. You know what I mean? They can't get in close to do their cruise missile strikes because every time they do, And then you've got our submarines. Okay, so you get submarines ganging up. You got 4 from Canada. And they start hunting the American submarines. They use the Auroras to basically take them out. Harpoon missiles start taking out warships. Before you know it, 6 weeks go by, and the U.S. Navy's down to maybe about 100 warships. And they can't cover everywhere. They've got most of the other navies defeated, but they've now lost 30 submarines, including their Ohios, everything like that. Then before you know it, just the lack of patrols of warships and the U.S. Air Force being so spread thin and getting knocked out by Taurus missile systems and stuff like that from Germany, from about 400 kilometers away or 250 miles. They can't protect the Navy fleets, and next thing you know, you have sub hunters. Every other week there's a sub being destroyed. Okay, within 6 months, there's no more U.S. Navy. There's maybe, other than maybe about 4 or 5 submarines, they're Virginia-class submarines. They can't surface anywhere because as soon as they're detected or go to reload or whatever, the supply ships get blown up. They get blown up, whatever. So now America is isolated to fighting from land, and that's it. China and Russia say, okay, well, we'll tell you what. We'll back you a little bit. Okay, suddenly Canada, fighting at the border with the Americans, we get tired of it, and we accept some help from the Chinese. Not that I ever want that, to be beholden to the Chinese, but it's the way Donald Trump is forcing us anyway. Next thing you know, the Americans are starting to lose territory, and they're going to lose a lot of territory. Like I say, I've already war gamed this out. When the Americans attack us, okay, it's going to go from 0 to 60 really fast. Because unlike the Ukraine, one of the things that's going to happen is that Canada is going to fight a very defensive war, and our generals right now are already talking about the what ifs. This is what's in the public. Imagine what they're talking about behind closed door. So if you're in Canada and you start seeing labs going, like our 900 labs being put over, I know labs can't take on a tank. I know that. But sitting in a tree line, good luck trying to fly a... Okay, well, I'll make it really, really simple for you. This is what Donald Trump wants to walk you into. If you think your Black Hawk helicopters are going to fly over labs, okay, fine. If they're in the tree line, you don't detect them quick enough. This is what's going to be shooting at you. That's 25 mil. That's a 1-inch round. Okay, that's just a dummy training round. But that's what's going to be shooting at you. They're going to be high explosive incendiary rounds. There's multiple types of munitions they have. I'll leave this here. This is what Donald Trump wants for you. You know what I mean? He wants to get you killed. And that's the small rounds, right? That's the small rounds. I mean, there's Bofors 40 out there that we still have a lot of those left over from World War II. You fly over one of those, you're getting shot down no matter what. But the thing is that the way I war game it is the United States will lose about 200 million people, mostly from starvation. Because it comes back to what I've been saying, and I'll talk about the economy in a moment, but the United States is like a tumor grafted onto a Canadian tumor, right? Our economies are completely intertwined. Now, we'll lose maybe about 4 to 8 million people, so we're going to get our asses handed to us as well. But the thing is like, unlike Zelensky, where he let the Russians invade for 3 days before he fucking mobilized anybody, we're going to mobilize much, much earlier. And unlike Zelensky, he's not going to say, okay, we're just going to fight them on our territory, whatever. No, we're going to hit the Americans back day one. We're not going to wait, okay, a year and a half, and then, okay, well, maybe we should, escalate things. No, it's just going to go from 0 to 60. It's like if they've invaded, fucking just start artillerying the other side of the border. It'll be on both sides. It'll be horrible. And everybody that would cheerlead this now, it's like, okay, yeah, but you and your loved ones and family members are going to be artilleryed by what was once your best friend because your jackass, wanted to steal all this territory from allies. You know what I mean? And this is what's going to happen. And when it does, trust me, you don't want to fight Canada on our territory, because it's not always about the equipment. Look, the Ukrainians and the Canadian military are similar in a lot of ways in capability, but we have slightly better capabilities. They have more numbers. Clearly have more numbers, even though they're running out of men. Yes, the Russians are winning in the Ukraine. I've already acknowledged that. It's undeniable at this point. But even with that, the Russians are the second most powerful military on the planet, maybe the third. It depends. It's either the number one is either China or the United States. In a lot of areas, it's believed to be the Americans are the number one military, because there's a lot of areas that China still can't cover yet, such as like heavy transport and stuff like that. But manpower-wise, China's number one. Number three is typically going to be Russia or number two. It's just, are the Russian, like there's capabilities the Russians have that the Chinese kind of don't and the Americans don't. And then there's capabilities the Americans have overall that both the Chinese and the Russians don't have. So it's really hard to tell who's the top dog military. But what you can say is these are the top three no matter what. And out of the top three, they're fighting probably the 16th to 18th most powerful military, which is the Ukraine. And yes, the Russians are winning. Okay? But at what cost? Like what, 500,000 men dead? 1 million men dead? We're never going to know the actual death toll of the Ukraine military. Neither side will be forthcoming on that, right? Because it's just an absolutely humanitarian disaster of a brothers' war, right? Brought on by the Jewish groups that overthrew the Ukraine in the coup in the first place for the banksters and the Anglo-American Empire and, NATO and all that stuff, right? Now, that said, the Russians know they're fighting NATO. They knew it since day one, so they counter-couped. And most of the Russians are on board with, they understand that they're fighting NATO. So, the war still has support, but it's getting less support when the Ukrainians actually start hitting Moscow, right? And you've got, drone strikes on Moscow. You've got, it's, again, these oligarchs that have decided for everybody to kill each other, right? Now, factor in the Canadian military. So if Russia can't just steamroll over Ukrainians, even with, if you think about what little the Ukrainians have, that's good. That's really good. It's about on par with the Canadian military. So they have about the same capabilities of us. In some areas, they're a little better set up. In other areas, we're better set. Overall, we're better set up. Okay. And if you were to pick a country that would be one of the easiest countries in the world to invade, it's the Ukraine, right? Because it's mostly flat farmland. So when Donald Trump made the deal with Zelensky saying, yeah, we're going to get all these minerals, we're going to get rich and blah, 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 again, failed because all those minerals are under Russian boots. You're not getting those minerals. The Russians aren't just going to hand it over to you, And yeah, Donald Trump and people like that and the Zionists, they don't care how many Americans die trying to get their resources for them, right? So, but most Americans are not going to want to fight Russians to steal Ukrainian resources. So if you can't steal it from the Ukraine, and that's not, even if they could end the war, and Ukraine said, okay, no, and Russia gave all the territory back, and Ukraine said, okay, well, we're going to pay back the Americans by giving them our minerals and stuff like that, and all the resources we promised them. It would still take 10 to 20 years to even get close to getting those supply chains going, right? And this is what I mean. Trump can't think 5 minutes ahead. It's the same problem in Venezuela. It didn't work in Syria when you say, yeah, well, we're going to just steal all the oil. Well, when you stole the oil from the Syrians, the Syrians pulled to Saddam and they burnt the oil fields, right? They destroyed the oil fields. Now it's going to take years to bring that back online. Okay, so it didn't work there. It didn't work in Iraq. We're going to get all these minerals and get rich off the oil because whatever, Saddam won't be allowed to sell the oil outside the petrodollar because the Americans don't believe in sovereign countries, right? So the thing is that, and when they say they do, well, clearly they don't because, well, maybe not all of them, but the administration doesn't because, Venezuela, last time I looked, was a sovereign country. But it's in our sphere of influence. That doesn't mean anything. It's still a sovereign country, right? So you go in, going to steal their oil. Well, the backfire again, and I said this when Donald Trump goes to take out Alberta, the Alberta oil by stealing it from the Venezuelans, there's going to be a rude awakening because it's going to backfire. And it already has in a big fucking way. And that is two things. Number one, the Venezuelan oil, I'll show you where it is. Venezuela, oil's in the jungle over here, not on the coast where it's easy. And all these oil companies that Donald Trump's, they're going to go in. And again, Donald Trump just says stuff. He doesn't necessarily, one of his negotiating tactics, it's a really bad one, but he does it. It's like, I'll just put people on the spot saying, oh yeah, we made a great deal, blah, blah, blah. And there's no deal. He did this to Starmer. I hate Starmer. Everybody hates Starmer. But when he was sitting there, oh yeah, the UK and us just did a great deal. And whatever. And it's like all the Trump supporters like, oh yeah, so we got a great deal, 90 deals, 90 days. And there's nothing. There's nothing signed, nothing. He just says it. He does this all the time. The man lies and lies. I get it. They're all cocksuckers. They all lie. There's no good world leaders anywhere, right? I get it. They're all bad guys. But he just lies and lies with the idea that, well, if I say this, it'll pressure them into doing it, or else, or I'll give them like a Twitter lashing, like a teenage girl or something. But it doesn't work. Okay, so Venezuela, at best, if you could even get the oil up and running, that's 4 to 5, maybe 10 years out before you could get a supply chain going there, right? So the oil refinery in Texas that is owned by Canada, what we do is we ship the oil down there, our oil down there, refine it, buy it back as gasoline. This is what the whole Keystone Pipeline was about. And I'm against the Keystone Pipeline because I'm like, for that same money, we could probably build 1 or 2 refineries in Canada. Why do we want to send our oil down there to get refined, to buy it back? Now, we were doing it because we were getting a good deal at the time where we refined our oil and the American oil, and we were making money off of it, right? So, okay, maybe we pay a little bit more for our gas, but we're going to make more in the sales anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? Cancels itself out in profit. But the thing is that the pipeline, that would only benefit the Americans predominantly. We wouldn't be making money off that Keystone Pipeline really. But we'd make a fucking shit ton off of an east-west pipeline and extra refineries. So here's the thing: Venezuela has the same heavy crude we have, but there's a problem. Getting it to market is going to take forever. So Alberta has time to divert its trade, and it already is and already has, and it's going to keep doing this. Why? Because even Danielle Smith said it herself. If the Americans don't want our oil, perhaps we'll find other people that do. And that's been across the board on just about every trade item that Donald Trump keeps saying, well, we don't need anything from Canada. But every time he says that, Americans lose jobs. You know what I mean? Again, prove me wrong. You prove me wrong. Oh, yeah, but there was a hiring here. Now, you lost jobs in Canada. Yeah, there's jobs being lost. There's a lumber issue going on right now. There's jobs lost in a lot of areas, but there's a lot of gains we've been making. And at first they were accidental wins, but no, these are Carney plans at this point. The problem is the Canadian public has been so deracinated by the Trudeau years that they can't see anything other than misery from the Carney, because they compare him to Trudeau. But at the end of the day, yes, Carney, he's not proud. He's not a proud Canadian. He's not a nationalist or anything like that. But he's 10 times smarter than Trump. There's no doubt about that. It's not a reigning endorsement of the guy. It's just the guy understands the system so much better. Because he's like one girl, she was saying, and she made a good point here. She's like, you don't just become the bank of government, like the governor of the Bank of Canada or the Bank of England, or Bank of London or whatever, without being heavily connected, right? Like Carney is connected. That's how the average person can never get into these positions, right? And that's the difference between, like, Carney's an insider. He's a globalist insider, right? I've been bitching about Carney since 2008. However, as a prime minister, knowing what I know now, if it was an election between Donald Trump and Carney, it's hands down it's Carney. Not because I like the guy, but it's just the guy's at least more sane, and you can find things you don't like about him, that's easy. But there's a lot of good things that if Donald Trump was doing what Carney was doing overall, his base would be ecstatic. And I'll get to some of that stuff. And again, I tell you guys because the other cheerleaders won't, right? The people that hate Carney will never tell you anything good about Carney. Because it's not about Carney. It's about where are we in the world, what's happening. That's what it is about for me. So if you're one of those staunch conservatives, you can't handle that, anybody saying anything positive about the opposite side, that's a you problem. You know what I mean? And if you're a liberal and that, oh, well, absolutely nothing the Trump administration does is good, that's a you problem. I'm just saying overall, almost everything coming out of the Trump administration is a negative. I'm not finding the wins. Okay, you got to win with JFK Jr. with the new dietary thing, the upside down triangle. But I mean, is that really a win though? Like you're telling people stuff. Okay, vegetables are better for you than bread. Okay, got it. We couldn't have figured that out ourselves. But this is the recommended now. So that big win. Okay, is it a win? It's a win, but it's like your country is like spending $1 trillion every 3 months that you can't keep up with. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, it's kind of like saying, and again, I'm not playing down the health thing at all, but think about it like this. Okay, you just bought new drapes for the house, great, but the house is now being foreclosed on. You know what I mean? That's the level. You got to look at wins that are significant, right? And again, the Nordic Alliance is being unfolded right in front of our eyes. It's all kinds of long-term $1 trillion. The Canada has signed on to about $20 trillion worth of trade deals in a year. It's not Trump making 90 deals in 90 days. It's Carney. It's just Carney flies somewhere. He comes back. Okay, they talked about a trade deal. Why? Because it's meeting number one. It takes a year, 2 years. Like I say, you're not going to see the benefits of what Carney's doing for probably another 2 to 4 years. Like, for example, we just dropped some trade barriers from province to province. This is going to be a benefit. More to come by June. Why can't you do it right now? Because you can't do it right now. You got to get the provinces on board. Things happen slowly. Functioning government happens at the speed of smell. And there's just some people that just their brains can't wrap around that. This is why, when people say, well, it's this person's economy or that person's economy, like you don't really know until you get into it. Right? So the Nordic Alliance is being a thing. France and Germany seem to be on board with defense of Greenland. Canada's on board with the defense of Greenland. And Canada's making big moves in the Arctic. Okay? It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a couple of years before you see bases. Look, back in 2010, when Obama started this fucking ball rolling for the globalists to take out Russia and surround it with NATO countries, and they started expanding NATO countries, President Medvedev at the time, Putin was the prime minister. Now the roles are reversed. Medvedev came out on national TV telling NATO, don't expand, don't escalate. It could lead to a conflict that could wipe out the world. Don't do it, right? And immediately the Russians started going up into the Arctic, and they opened up something like 18 old Cold War bases. Now they're like around 40 or 38 bases opened up. And they built a couple of really, really mega Russian military bases up there. We've been, because of Trudeau and stuff like that, gutting our military and basically ignoring the Arctic, pretending it's not there. And Stephen Harper said it best, use it or lose it, right? The Americans want to just take it from us, and they don't want to take it from us for this spherical hemisphere stuff. They want to take it for us because of the resources. It's trillions and trillions of dollars of resources, not just the oil, but the minerals. It's hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of minerals. We're talking hundreds of years of minerals, right? That's what it's about. That's what Greenland's about. That's what Venezuela's about. Problem is when you try to bully your way to steal it, you just get backlash. And nobody wants to cooperate with you. Like Trump's like, I'll threaten you into a deal. Is not like he's too stupid to realize that doesn't work. It didn't work once. It didn't work twice. Yeah, well, if you don't give it to us, we're just going to annex you. Well, the problem is, and this is something that people aren't picking up on the pattern here. Look, the Russians did drills, and this is very this is like Sun Tzu 101 here. Art of War 101. You do drills on your opponent's border and get them believing you're going to invade. Okay? You do the drill and then nothing happens. It's just a drill. Then you do it again, and then you do it again, and each time you wrap up the rhetoric, propaganda. You propaganda your own side, propaganda. Oh, we're this. You make sure that the other guy really believes you're going to invade, right? And then you don't do it. And then you do a drill again and again. It's bigger. The drills get bigger. The buildup gets bigger, and nothing and nothing and nothing. This goes on maybe a year, months, years, weeks, whatever. Suddenly, at some point, it's like, yeah, they're just doing another drill. Yeah, they're just doing another drill. Yeah, they're just doing another drill. Fuck, they're invading. And that's how it works, right? We might use force against Greenland. Then you don't. We might use force against. They got to get it to the point, and it hasn't happened yet, because number one, Trump has already proven himself to be a neocon, the same as Obama and the rest of them were, right? There's no difference between George Bush and Trump. Now people wonder why. Well, how come he didn't arrest Hillary Clinton and the Bushes and the Obama administration and stuff like that for war games? Now he's in it with them. It's just he's the other side of the coin trying to make money. That's all. Mob bosses fighting, as I say. So you get this situation where he keeps threatening Greenland, and what we're supposed to be doing is dismissing it. And yes, the people on the right that still have like hopium or whatever, even in Canada, like there's conservatives in Canada that are still like cheerleading for Donald Trump. Like, you do realize this man would have no hesitate from dropping bombs on your head and killing you. Like he's going to order his guys to kill our people. You do realize that, right? And again, I sound like I'm hyperbolic now, but here's how it plays out. Okay, the Venezuelan thing is not going to work. He's not going to be able to put Alberta out. Alberta is now diverting its trade in oil. They're going to feed the American machine as long as they can, but at some point, the Americans are going to have no leverage over the Canadian oil or gas or anything, and that's happening. And a big move has just been made. Again, Donald Trump, we don't need anything from Canada. Okay, you might not need anything from us, but you're losing stuff to us. And I've been saying this over and over again, and half of my audience doesn't believe me on this because they're so blind with the rage on Carney. And I'm like, I don't care if you like the guy or don't like the guy. That's not the issue here. What you need to look at is what has just happened. Like right now, Carney, again, Trump, and I hate Trump for this. He's a cocksucker for doing this. The fucking faggot is pushed our guy to warm up to China, which is bad enough. And I've always said this. The liberals tend to sell us out to the Chinese. The conservatives sell us out to the Americans. But the last thing is I don't want the same problem to reoccur with China, and I don't want to be beholden to China, right? But because of the hostility from the U.S. administration, Canada is now moving towards China. So what does that look like? Well, what that looks like was a shit ton of oil that America was selling to China. Well, China's no longer buying that oil from them. That same amount of oil is now being bought from Canada. Meaning the United States just lost a shit ton of jobs and revenue to us. Again, this has been going on for months now. And you're starting to see the deal, like the aluminum and steel trade deals. We're making tons and tons of those. Yes, it takes a while to get things rolling. Yes, we lost 1,000 jobs in the aluminum sector, right? But that's diverting. That's going to grow. Our GDP is growing slightly. Most of it, has to do with the bouncing ball, the mass migration, temporary foreign workers and stuff like that. And we got to wean that off. The Americans have already ran out of runway on that, where they can't use that to put up the GDP numbers anymore because they now have way more people than jobs. As we're going to be able to play this immigrant game for a little bit longer. Not that I want to, but and even Carney's cutting back on that a little bit, not enough. But about midsummer 2026, the temporary foreign workers are going to be cut in half. Maybe not in half, but down to. We're going down from 7.5% of growth immigration to 5% of our population. Right? Way too much. We need to cut off immigration completely. Full stop. And send people back. You know what I mean? Fuck the GDP numbers. You know what I mean? because I'd rather have people being paid well and wealth, even if the GDP numbers not as. And Stephen Harper understood this, and we had growth in the GDP for 7 out of 10 years, but it wasn't lightning. Why? Because people were getting paid actual living wages, maybe not perfectly, but much better than what's going on now. You have to understand the wages under Harper are still the same now, but the cost of living is about 4 times, 4 times higher, believe it or not, on some things, especially energy. So major win for Canada with these trades with China. Now China is out there telling us Canadians that Carney's out there saying, look, we're going to double trade in 10 years. That's the goal, right? And it sounds like an unrealistic goal. And a lot of people, well, why can't you just do double the trade now? Because it takes a long time. Again, people don't understand this stuff. It takes a long time. When you say, okay, well, we're going to increase trade by 10% or double, I mean, you're talking massive supply chain shock just to be able to produce that demand. That you grow into that. You don't, but you have to really focus on it and have a plan. And these things take time. Trade deals take time. You meet quite a few times to get the meeting to see when the next meeting is, and you keep hashing out a plan. You got to, come up with a deal. So this is why you don't see this overnight fix the economy, because nobody can, right? Everything's a slow turn. But at least in Canada, we're turning in the right direction. The problem is the man on the street is not feeling the benefit yet. Because of the high inflation and the homeless camps, you name it. The problems are everywhere. It's not just in Canada; it's in the States. Every problem Canada has, the United States has the same. There might be different spectrum of who's worse in what area, but if you add it up overall, every Western country is suffering the same problems because the people in charge they're all in on it together, right? Including Trump. So obviously, Trump losing so much trade to us is benefiting us. Like, for example, at last count, we lost 6.6% trade with the United States, right? So that means we were 6.6% trade less dependent on the United States. Now it's 15.5. So in slightly less than a year, or just around a year, Carney has diverted 15.5% of our trade. We've lost 15.5% trade with the United States out of the 50% of our economy. That's a big chunk. But he's made up, I don't know what it's at now, but at the last count, he's already made up that trade by 24%. Now, China, what they said to us is that, okay, no. Why would we double the trade with you guys? How about we triple it? An offer you can't refuse. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, we got one guy, an ass clown, sitting there saying he's going to bully us, he's going to trade us, he's going to destroy our economy, he's going to steal all our resources, he might even use military force against us, not ruled out, but we're just going to crush you economically. We don't need anything from you. You're a parasite. We hate you. Canada's just, we're paying for everything for every Canadian. All the stuff, most of it, anyway. Look into what the man says. He lies and he lies and he lies. Okay? Versus, hey, this is how China does business. Well, rather than threatening to bomb you and steal your resources, how about you triple your trade with us? We're the #1 trade economy in the world. Do you want to trade with us and triple your trade by 3 times? Now, here's my take on this. Sounds like a great deal, but what does that deal entail? What will we lose? Well, I think what we lose is in 20 years to 30 years to either pay back the Chinese, they're going to want to annex BC. Then what, right? Or, hey, how about you let us help you develop the Arctic? You know what I mean? This is what we're going to be up against, which would almost guarantee war with the Americans, moving closer to China. And the thing is you could see it happening because of Donald Trump being such a fucking dickhead, right? So the fuck Trump economy is going on around the world. Canada's benefiting big time. Yes, it'll be a long time before you really see the benefits, but our GDP is growing. It's the Canadian economy is like a bouncing ball. It's up, it's down. It's got tons and tons of problems. You don't have to tell me where the problems are. I know where the problems are the same way you do. We've been living it the past 10 years under the Trudeau collapse. Granted, you're preaching to the choir. But I'm also seeing where the ship is righting itself. I see where the ship still has leaks in it. And the problem is people on my side of the aisle are not talking about the positives. They're just talking about the negatives, right? And I understand it. I get it. But what I'm telling you is you're wasting energy on things that are, being resolved when you could focus on the things that are not being resolved. You know what I mean? And I think that'll be a better way for us. The problem is the number one thing you have to consider is this, is if the American economy is bad, ugly, and disaster, okay, you have to look at the Canadian economy as good, bad, gamble. Can Carney divert trade before the United States completely implodes without taking us with them? This is what he's trying to race against. That there's no man on the planet that wants to take on that job. That is a feat and a half. But that said, Canada is becoming a very heavyweight mid-power and to the point where in a lot of quality of life, like we're still overall better off than the Americans in most things in life. But we're not, we have like dire problems as well. That said, in the direction we're going, at some point these problems are not going to just resolve themselves, but we're going to be in a position to resolve them, such as hopefully the homeless crisis. Carney's not the radical leftist Trudeau was. Yes, he's on the left, but at least his philosophy is not just let's just increase everything, all the welfare for free stuff. That just more debt, more debt, more debt. His philosophy is we have to grow the economy, right? So there's a lot of progressive stuff that Carney stands for that I absolutely despise. But I can also see the forest for the trees that he is, if Pierre Poilievre got in and was doing what Carney is doing, people would be praising Pierre Poilievre. You know what I mean? And the thing is, I know people don't want to hear that. Like nobody wants to hear that the other guy might be doing the right thing in some areas. When it's like no, my guy's the good guy that can do no wrong, and that guy can do no right. It's not like that. It's mob bosses fighting. Look, there's things about Pierre. Yes, I voted for him. But like, there's things about Pierre I really don't like. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to go over them now because he's not in power. There's no point. And he needs to pivot if he ever wants to win an election. I don't think Pierre can ever win an election, especially after siding with Donald Trump on something. With the Maduro thing, he should have just kept his mouth. It's best for politicians not to engage in Trump politics if you ever want to win. Look, the future is going this way. People that support Israel will not be elected in the future going forward as much until they're completely weaned out. Anybody that grafts onto it doesn't matter if they're on the right or on the left. If they graft onto anything positive of Donald Trump, you're going to alienate the voter base because of the hatred of Donald Trump. Even Donald Trump himself cannot figure out why he's falling so much in the polls. He's like, my policies are the right one. Why does my base not like this? Why do they not like the regime change? We got rid of a tyrant. Meanwhile, Netanyahu gets a genocidal maniac gets a free pass, right? And it's not only that, it's people don't want any of it. They don't want to be in the war in the Ukraine. Yes, if Donald Trump wants to get out of NATO, I wish Canada was out of NATO, but I'm all for the Nordic Alliance, right? I think the European alliance, they talked about it a few years back. Yeah, sure, the Europeans are shitting bricks because, the Americans aren't as engaged in the Ukraine as they would like. Well, fuck them. You know what I mean? Because, that they wanted this NATO war against Russia. You got it. And the Russians, they're not only holding their own, but they're winning. If you want to stop it, you need to, there's going to have to be concessions made to the, and whatever. And you use that time to build up like Finland, Poland, Latvia, whatever, to a degree, so that the Russians can't invade, so that you can at least hold the line, so they don't get Ukraine. You know what I mean? Look, NATO will fight the Russians to the last. Ukrainian, it's evil, okay? But Donald Trump doing all this dumb stuff. Look, if you're going to get out of NATO, get out of NATO. If you're going to get out of the UN, get out of the UN. Most Americans are all for that. You would save trillions of dollars in the long run anyway. But see, Trump doesn't want to get out of that. Why? Because Israel said so. They need the war machine, the weapons donors industry. The war machine has said to Donald Trump, no, we need to make money here. This is why we're doing conquest. This is why we're doing piracy at the high seas. Which I'll leave it on the piracy at the high seas. And again, look, the Americans have seized a Russian freighter. They chased it across the ocean to pretty much get it. Okay, and I'm sure this ghost freighter that was Russia's had probably weaponry on it that would probably go to what I've said a little while back, that we're working towards the Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. We still are. At some point, weapons are going to get into Venezuela, real air defense systems and stuff like that, depending on which way Venezuela goes. So again, the oil companies aren't jumping to, take the Venezuelan oil. The oil companies have already lost money in Venezuela and waiting to get paid back from the last time. So they're not just jumping on it. Maybe some of the smaller oil companies might, but even at that, now you have to have boots on the ground, okay? And good luck if the Venezuelans decide that the Americans can't have that oil. It doesn't matter how strong the U.S. military is. You will lose people trying to defend that, and you'll never get an ounce of oil out of the country because the Saddam effect, meaning they're going to burn the oil fields. They're going to destroy the oil fields. And no oil company really wants to go into an unstable place. It's the same reason why the mining companies aren't going into the Ukraine right now. It's like, well, we could be taken over by the Russians. We're not going to invest in that until there's stability. Trump does not understand stability. He understands a bully tactic, real estate terms of you lose, I win, therefore that's a good deal. He doesn't understand mutual benefit. He's incapable. And this is why he keeps losing out to everybody around the world that are just silently just try to, just nod and smile and divert around him. Carney's been outplaying Trump like crazy. Not a reigning endorsement of Carney, just saying he's a smarter man and he knows how the game's played, and he just, appease when Trump goes on a tirade, appease him and nod, smile, whatever, tell him what he wants to hear, and then go make a deal with somebody else. And again, when you start looking at it for what it is, and again, I know that there's Carney haters out there too. You hate them all you want, but at least look at what's going on. Are the policies good? Are the policies bad? Critique that. It'll do you much better anyway. And again, not everything's going to work out into our favor. Like there's some stuff that's not working in our favor. Carney does seem to flip-flop a bit. He lies, again, just as much or more than Trump. But the difference is that he is making these deals that Trump can't get because people want to make a deal, even if it costs them a little bit more to make a deal with Canada. Once these deals are made, like diverting the oil from buying from America and buying it from Canada, like that is a huge boost for us Canadians. And that is a massive, massive loss to American oil industries, for sure. Donald Trump isn't going to take well to it. And the question is, can Carney overcome the fear of the Trump retaliation when we make these deals? Again, this is the race against time, where we have to divert that trade before Trump can destroy us, right? And if he can't destroy us, will he say, okay, well, I'm going to kick over the table by just using my military to invade you? And yes, most U.S. soldiers, again, there's no honor in them because they'll just invade because, oh, well, they said we got to do it. That's the way soldiers work, unfortunately. Till I see different, till I see the U.S. military go after all these, these fucking neocon, whether they're on the left or on the right, till I see them rounding these people up and give them give them their day in court, crimes against humanity, hang them high, right? Till the military in the States goes, and I'm not talking just the Trump administration. I'm talking the Bush administration, the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, the Biden administration, the Trump administration. Get them all. Go get them all. These people are pure fucking evil. All of them. They all went with these regime change wars and all these Israeli Greater Israel Project stuff. It's time to go. But let's talk about the U.S. Navy. Here's the next play that's coming up. And I said this would happen anyway. Is the United States Navy is a pirate navy, okay? So it went from the anti-pirate navy after World War II and basically patrolling the high seas, keeping ship lanes open and fighting piracy and all that stuff, to we're now the number one pirates going around stealing freighters. Yes, there's other countries doing it as well in retaliation, right? We get that. The Houthis were blowing up stuff going to Israel, all that stuff. The Iranians were stealing freighters, capturing freighters after the UK and the Americans were doing. So the UK was doing this too, just not to the level that the Americans are doing now, where they're just outright blatantly stealing, merchant marine ships, on the global stage, stealing people's oils and resources from other people, including China. All right. So China, Iran, and Russia are now doing joint Navy exercises in South Africa. This pisses the Israelis off a bit, but it's also the Israeli connections to South Africa. Anyway, mob bosses fighting. That's dismissed outright. At some point, I don't know if it's going to be the Cuban Navy. They might not have much of a Navy. It might be the Chilean Navy and the Venezuelan Navy. But you're going to start to see freighters escorted by warships, corvettes, frigates, etc., submarines. When the Americans did catch up to that submarine, this is how close World War III could have just happened. Americans took their navy from here, and they captured a Russian vessel here. Now they're around this Russian vessel. What little did the Americans know that not until after they seized the vessel that they were being tracked by a Russian submarine. That submarine was probably with them the entire time. So what tells me is that there was probably some sort of a weaponry or something on that vessel that the Americans were trying to get, say like S-300s or something like that, or Iskander missiles, or something like that. If you could get it and reverse engineer it, figure out how it works, you could find a way to defeat the stuff, right? Maybe that's what happened, or maybe it was just an empty freighter. But they could have been sunk by a Russian torpedo. Like if the Russians fire, a Shkval torpedo at anything, it's cutting that ship in half. It might not take out an aircraft carrier with a single hit, but it will cripple it. And those things, you can't stop them. Once those are on the terminal path, they move at a speed, an unbelievable speed of 700 knots underwater, because they travel in this air bubble. They're more like an underwater rocket, so they have their limitations. But yeah, if you've got a Yazan class or an Akula class submarine following you, that's 38 torpedoes, 30 to 38 torpedoes, and cruise missiles that can come up out of the ocean really quick. You might sink the sub, but you won't live to tell the tale. And then you are now in a direct shooting war between Russia and the United States. No proxy in between. How dangerous is that? And brought on by the Trump administration. I'm not saying we should be defending the good guys in this whole sphere of influence thing. Look, sovereign nations are rising up against the Americans. It's only a matter of time before they shoot back. Yes, when a Venezuelan corvette shoots down a U.S. Black Hawk they'll probably start with a freighter. It'll be a Venezuelan freighter or whatever, an Iranian freighter. They're going to shoot a bunch of Black Hawk helicopters out of the Navy helicopters out of the sky, killing that. And then, of course, the U.S. warship is going to open fire on the freighter, creating not only an ecological disaster and killing everybody on board, but basically people are going to say, well, these guys, okay, when your SEAL team was coming they came out on the deck and they killed these guys, killed the Americans. And when people say, well, we got to avenge that because these are terrorists, it's like, no, well, you attacked them. They defended themselves. The rest of the world's going to see it that way, not the Americans. They're going to be like, well, we've got to go to war now because they killed our guys when we were trying to steal their, use our pirate navy to steal their stuff, right? The rest of the world's not going to be on board with the United States. And when they sink, unarmed freighters, then you're going to get military Navy escorts, right? And they'll probably win a few battles, but they're going to take extreme losses on the high seas. Guys, we're about to see master and commander in the modern era. You know what I mean? So you've got a Venezuelan frigate or whatever going toe to toe with a U.S. warship, both firing missiles. You only got to get lucky once. And let's say they can't you sink the Venezuelan ship. Okay, well yeah, but you just took like 80 Zu-57s through the hull, and now half your crew's dead. Now you got to cripple your crippled ship has to sail back home and explain to the American people why these sailors are guts are plastered on the inside of the hull, and they've been vaporized by Zu-57s, right? Or completely lost the crew altogether. Like how are you going to justify that? While we were stealing the freighter, and in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, which is no longer your hemispherical, you know what I mean? And again, I think Stephen Harper, I'll just finish on this. Stephen Harper basically summed it up like that the Chinese know how to do business. Like they're better at it than us. Because like Trump is just going around, we're going to decide who your nation does business with in our hemisphere. In other words, bullying you or else, right? You're going to sell to who we tell you can sell to and how much and blah, blah, blah. I mean, boldly coming out and saying things like, okay, well, Venezuela wasn't selling enough oil, so we had to invade them. Like these are Trump's words. Again, it's bizarre, but yet here we are. You can't even make this stuff up. So no, people, like I say, the United States is about to go to war physically with about 40 to 45 countries, NATO countries, and South American countries, African countries, and Middle Eastern countries, all at the same time. They're not going to survive this. You're going to lose about 200 million Americans in this process. You're going to be starved out. Your crops are going to be destroyed. Your treatment plants, your hydro, everything is going to get destroyed. Yeah, you might hit back, but you won't be able to hit back for long. We saw what happened when 16 countries ganged up on Germany in World War II. What happens when about 40 to 45, and nobody will ever stand up against it. It only takes one. It only takes one. Look, one Chilean sub in defense of Venezuela firing a Torpedo 2000 or F-21 torpedo at a U.S. warship is a game changer. Once they say, yeah, you can defeat the giant. We might take losses, but it'll probably be worth it. At that point, when you have like 4 or 5, I think it'll, especially after Mexico, after Trump does air raids against Mexico. And they have, like, if they do it with the blessing of the Mexicans, say, yeah, we're going to coordinate and you can take out the cartels. Maybe Scheinbaum's like, well, she's a mob boss too. So it's like, hey, she could take out all my opponents. Remember, like the U.S. makes money off the drug trade, right? Like it's the CIA's number one. It's which guys are getting paid, which guys are not. So it's just basically mob bosses knocking each other off, right? So we'll see what Scheinbaum does. But right now, she doesn't seem to be open to the idea of letting Trump do anything on her territory of Mexico. Which, okay, you can bash the Mexicos for the hypocrisy of sending all the the illegals across their border and stuff like that. Sure, I'm on board with you with that. But on the other hand, too, don't think for a second that, like the South Americans are going to side with the Americans over other South Americans. You know what I mean? Like it's going to go tribal pretty quick. Look, if the Americans want to lock down their border, lock down your border. You know what I mean? If you want to coordinate strikes against actual terrorist targets in South America with the blessing of those countries, fine. Otherwise, stay the fuck out of them. But they're gonna. Well, maybe if you don't fuck with them, they're not going to. Whatever neocon argument you're going to get. Either these wars end or they don't. And the thing is the more economically viable path for America is non-interventionism. Like you'll have better hemispheric, success if you do what the Chinese do. And it comes back to what Max Kaiser said back in 2010. The Americans have a death and debt-based economy. You take their democracy, their petrodollar, they drop democracy JDAMs on you, right? The Chinese have always done this. Wherever America blows up bridges, the Chinese go make bridges. Oh, you want to do trade with us instead of the Americans? Okay, well, rather than double your trade, how about we triple your trade? Better deal. Let's sweeten the pot. Let's go big or go home. It's kind of a hard offer to. Not that I want this offer with China. I don't want to be moving closer to China, but the Americans are pushing us away because they want to destroy us and take our stuff. And I mean the Trump administration. Most Americans are, again, 80% of Americans are against any sort of hostile action towards allied nations. And remember, the American administration considers Canada a hostile nation now, officially. You have that Zionist lady in the Trump administration, one of the guy's wives or whatever, with the Greenland flag, Greenland draped in an American flag saying soon, right? Look, Canada, Greenland, Denmark, they're already in talk saying, what if the Americans did invade? What are we going to do? So that means if you start seeing military buildups in Canada, in Greenland, we could see a head-to-head in Greenland, which would be bizarre, sure, but again, all the scenarios I talked about can play out. And if France gets involved, and let's say the UK decide, like Starmer's trying to play the fence, we see that, but Macron, love him or hate him, most people hate him, I hate him too, but he has come out and said, look, we're ready to defend the Ukraine, as crazy as that is, but we're ready to go in when everybody else is. If you touch Greenland, yeah, we're coming. Like if France will liberate the Ukraine, be a part of the liberation of Ukraine Greenland if the Americans do something stupid. And remember, France is a nuclear power. Now, if the UK joins in on this, that's a second nuclear power. The United States can't take France, Germany, Canada, Finland, Norway, Denmark. Definitely can't take them in the Arctic, and definitely can't take them if we all gang up on the United States, and that could happen. That would be bizarre, but Trump is pissing people off that much. And look, the world conversation amongst the world leaders is America is now a rogue nation. It now has a pirate navy. It's now stealing stuff. So today it's stealing Venezuelan freighters on its way to China and Iran. Tomorrow it could be stealing British freighters or Canadian freighters. What do we do when the U.S. military blows a Canadian freighter out of the water because we're not allowed to do trade with China? Again, this is where we're at, guys. Terrifying, I know. A lot of people, Reg, you're hyperbolic, but again, you know my track record on this channel. I'm right about 80% of the time. Why is that? Well, it's not about how I feel about it. It's about looking at the dots. 2 + 2 always equals 4. Trump is insane. He's not the first insane guy we've ever seen in power, but he's the first guy in charge of like one of the largest militaries in the world. He can do stuff. He can do a lot of damage. I'll talk about the Northwest Passage and that in the next video. Maybe the next one, because there's so much to talk about there, but there's a lot going on there, and Canada's making moves there, and we have to, again, time is of the essence. This summer, you're going to see probably tons of Canadian movement, military movement in the Arctic and other stuff. We need to start getting missile systems up there, anti-shipping. We need to strike deals with the Swedes that we can, or the Germans. Get the stuff, get it out there. Just keep everybody honest. You know what I mean? Put the installments in our territory. Keep everybody honest. Anyway, there we go. Have a great day.